Quran, and then I'll invite you. Okay?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الطلاق مرتان فإمساك بمعروف أو تسريح بإحسان ولا يحل لكم أن تأخذوا مما آتيتموهن شيئا إلا أن يخافا ألا يقيما حدود الله فإن خفتم ألا يقيما حدود الله فلا جناح عليهما فيما افتدت به تلك حدود الله فلا تعتدوها ومن يتعد حدود الله فأولئك هم الظالمون فإن طلقها فلا تحل له من بعد حتى تنكح زوجا غيره فإن طلقها فلا جناح عليهما أن يتراجعا إن ظنا أن يقيما حدود الله وتلك حدود الله يبينها لقوم يعلمون وإذا طلقتم النساء فبلغن أجلهن فأمسكوهن بمعروف أو سرحوهن بمعروف ولا تمسكوهن ضرارا لتعتدوا ومن يفعل ذلك فقد ظلم نفسه ولا تتخذوا آيات الله هزوا واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم وما أنزل عليكم من الكتاب والحكمة يعظكم به واتقوا الله واعلموا أن الله بكل شيء عليم وإذا طلقتم النساء فبلغن أجلهن فلا تعذلوهن أن ينكحن أزواجهن إذا تراضوا بينهم بالمعروف ذلك يوعظ به من كان منكم يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر ذلكم أوزى لكم وأطهر والله يعلم وأنتم لا تعلمون والوالدات يرضعن أولادهن حولين كاملين لمن أراد أن يتم رضاعة وعلى المولود له رزقهن وكسوتهن بالمعروف لا تكلف نفس إلا وسعها لا تضر والدة بولدها ولا مولود له بولده وعلى الوارث مثل ذلك فإن أرادا فصالا عن تراض منهما وتشاور فلا جناح عليهما وإن أردتم أن تسترضعوا أولادكم فلا جناح عليكم إذا سلمتم ما آتيتم بالمعروف واتقوا الله واعلموا أن الله بما تعملون بصير إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى. At this time, I'd like to request Brother Abbas Maklai for recitation with the last salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
آ جاؤ چاند میرے، تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤ، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، آ جاؤ چاند میرے، تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤ، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، میرے لاڈلے کہاں ہو، میرے لاڈلے کہاں ہو، سینے تمہیں لگاؤ، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہو، آ جاؤ چاند میرے، تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤ، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، تیرے جھولے کو سکینہ رو رو کے چومتی ہے، تجھے رن میں ڈھونڈتی ہے، تیری موت کی خبر میں، تیری موت کی خبر میں، کیسے اسے سناؤ، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، آ جاؤ چاند میرے، تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤ، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، بیٹا تمہارا قاتل میرے سامنے کھڑا ہے، جانے کیوں ہنس رہا ہے، چادر بھی لٹ چکی ہے، چادر بھی لٹ چکی ہے، منہ کس طرح چھپاؤں، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، آ جاؤ چاند میرے، تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤ، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، لگتا ہے ماں سے اصغر ناراض ہو گیا ہے، مقتل میں سو گئے ہے، ڈھونڈوں کہاں میں اس کو، ڈھونڈوں کہاں میں اس کو، اور کس طرح جگاؤں، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، آ جاؤ چاند میرے، تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤ، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، میدان میں جا کے جرات بھی ایسی تم دکھانا، غازی ہی نظر آنا، تو پیاس میں ہے پر میں، تو پیاس میں ہے پر میں، پانی در لاؤں، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، آ جاؤ چاند میرے، تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤ، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، میرے لاڈلے کہاں ہو، میرے لاڈلے کہاں ہو، سینے تمہیں لگاؤ، اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں، آ جاؤ چاند میرے تیری پیاس میں بجھاؤ اصغر میں تیری ماں ہوں. صلوات.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Abbas. One more loud salawat for him, please. At this time, I'd like to request Brother Mohsin for recitation of poetry with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات. اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد. شام کی عورتوں ایک وعدہ کرو روز قبر سکینہ پہ آؤ گی تم شام کی عورتوں ایک وعدہ کرو جب تلک لوٹ کر میں نہ آؤں جب تلک لوٹ کر میں نہ آؤں آ کے شمع جلاؤ گی تم شام کی عورتوں ایک وعدہ کرو صورت شاہدی بے کفن بھی میرے جیسی اسیر محل بھی خالی کرتے میں مدفون غربت مثل اصغر رہی بے کفن بھی کیا کفن کی طرح روز چادر کیا کفن کی طرح روز چادر اس لحد پر چڑھاؤ گی تم شام کی عورتوں ایک وعدہ کرو روز قبر سکینہ پہ آؤ گی تم شام کی عورتوں ایک وعدہ کرو ایک یثرب کی تھی شاہزادی اس کا سکا تھا عباس غازی مشق لے کر گیا سوئے دریا اور قبضے میں کر لی ترائی لوریوں میں یہ سچی کہانی روز اس کو سناؤ گی تم شام کی عورتوں ایک وعدہ کرو ہم نے زنداں سے پائی رہائی اب بہن پاس ہوگی نہ بھائی بات اتنی سی بس یاد رکھنا میری بچی ہے غم کی ستائی، تم نے بازار میں تو ستایا، تم نے بازار میں تو ستایا، اب نہ اس کو ستاؤ گی تم شام کی عورتوں، ایک وعدہ کرو، جب کبھی قید خانے میں آنا، بے ردا بیویوں کو نہ لانا، تم کو اصغر بھی دے گا دعائیں، اس کی تنہائیاں یوں مٹانا، چھوٹے چھوٹے سے بچوں کو لا کر، چھوٹے چھوٹے سے بچوں کو لا کر، پاس اس کے سلاؤ گی تم شام کی عورتوں، ایک وعدہ کرو، روز قبر سکینہ پہ آؤ گی تم شام کی عورتوں، ایک وعدہ کرو، جب تلک لوٹ کر میں نہ آؤں، جب تلک لوٹ کر میں نہ آؤں، آنکھ شمع جلاؤ گی تم شام کی عورتوں، ایک وعدہ کرو، بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات۔ Jazakallah khair, Brother Mohsin. One more loud salawat for him, please. At this time, I'd like to request Sister Fatima Jafri for recitation of poetry with the loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Salawat. Assalamu alaikum. The poem that I wrote is titled "The Human Heart Can't Bear." I tell them to feel the heaviness in my heart, the heaviness in my chest that takes me to Bainul Haraman. This familiar path, I run towards his beloved name. He calls for me and I call for him. But there's this heaviness in my chest that remembers his pain. As I fall down on my knees, I hear the cries of the Azadar of Hussein. My heart stops beating, and I forget my own pain. My heart stops beating, and my hands tremble looking at Zainab, longing to embrace her, as she says goodbye to her beloved sun and moon. My heart stops beating, and I can't seem to speak. I hold my ears and hear Sakina, Alatash, my uncle, come back to the camps. I see her in ruins, I see her in chains, I see her small bruised face in the barren plains. I see her small ears burnt in blood, the Farat River crying, a never-ending flood. I see Abbas and his hands being severed. I see the mushk being slaughtered. I see the mushk being slaughtered. I hit my chest to make this pain go away. I do matam again and again, it still won't go away. I then see Ali Akbar speared through chest. Hussein comes crying and rushing, for he was his first tragedy among the rest. I hear horses trampling the body of a 13-year-old boy. his ribs crushed into puzzle pieces that can't be put together. I then hear a faint noise of a baby's cry. I hear a mother's tears from left to right, a baby's silent among the dreaded night. I see tents burning and the horror of the flames. I then choke on my tears. I choke on the images of Ashura. I choke on the cries of his mother Zahra. Through blooded breath she utters her son's name. And at the time of Asr, I see the sun start to fragment. That's when I see 72 heads upon spears. The children drowning in their fears. I see my beloved drenched in blood, arrows speared through his chest. His knees fall on the sand of Karbala, his blood and tears embraces Karbala. And when they made a trail of heads upon spears, and when the oppressors made a trail of heads upon spears, that's when I knew Sham-e Ghariba is now here. I see Sajjad in shackles and chains, witnessing the heart's most greatest pain. My hands beat my head as Sham makes me insane. I see him plead a whispered prayer during the burning of the tents. I see him plead a whispered prayer while the heavens lament. And when they force his hands to his head, I see him plead a whispered prayer for the 72 dead. His chains become the dhikr of Tasbih Zahra. And his wounds a witness for the tragedy of Karbala. I see him weep rivers. I see him recite dhikr while his dry lips quiver, and his footsteps make the earth shake and shiver. I hit my chest again and again, hearing his feet break. How did Sajjad witness Sham while his own heart ached? Tell me, what is this feeling? What is this feeling of hearing his Messiah over and over again that my heart stops beating? This pain will always be within me, for the story of Karbala is pierced between my heart. Because in the midst of my infinite pain, it is his pain that heals me. Because in the midst of my infinite pain, it is Hussein's pain that heals me. Salawat.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Fatima. One more loud salawat for her, please. Respected Sayyid, respected scholars, respected Shaykh, elders, brothers and sisters of faith, Assalamu alaikum. Our condolences to the Imam of our time and all the mu'mineen of the tragedy of Karbala and the tragedy that befell the house of Al-Muhammad. Jazakallah Shaykh Ahmad for accepting our invitation. We look forward to your lectures tonight and tomorrow and hope to learn from them and elevate ourselves through these holy nights through them. Before I request the Shaykh to begin, just a few reminders. Each weekend, CFK will be inviting a guest speaker, and we will be having programs both Saturday and Sunday night. Alhamdulillah, this weekend we are honored to have Shaykh Ahmad Modarressi. Programs on Saturday and Sunday will begin with the recitation of Holy Quran, followed by poetry, speech, matam, Salat al-Maghriban, and to-go niyaz. Jazakallah khair to all those who have donated in these holy nights to the City of Knowledge. We have just about reached our goal. Please remember, we don't do any active fundraising between programs. It is therefore requested to all those who can, please help us reach our goal and donate as much as you can. Sponsorship slots are available online and updated every day at cfkdfw.org. A reminder to our mothers that we do have a room dedicated to young children to utilize for their ease and to minimize disturbances in the main hall during the program and the Sheikh's speech. As always, event details are posted on our webpage and our WhatsApp group. On our website, you can sign up for a newsletter, find the QR code to join our WhatsApp group, and donate and sponsor in these holy nights. For opportunities to help behind the scenes, or if you have any questions, please speak to myself or any of the volunteers. Before I request a Shaykh to begin his speech, I would like to request a Surah Fatiha for the marhumin of tonight's sponsors, of tonight's program sponsors. Let us also include our own marhumin and mu'minat and those of the Muslim Ummah. We are also aware that the light is out, the electricity is not working on the east side of the building, and inshallah we are working to hopefully resolve that. With that, I would like to request the Shaykh to ascend the member to begin his speech for tonight, and request all brothers and sisters to move as close to the member as possible. With Allah salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Thank you. That's good. That's true. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. For the honor of Mawlana wa Sayyidina Rasulullah and his immaculate progeny, recite the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. الحمد لله الذي لا بداية له والدائم الذي لا نفاد له والأول الذي لا أول لأوليته والآخر الذي لا مؤخر لآخريته ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه وحبيبه حافظ سره ومبلغ رسالاته حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين سيما بقية الله في السماوات والأراضين. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن الكريم وذا النون إذ ذهب مغاضبا فظن أن لن نقدر عليه فنادى في الظلمات أن لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين فاستجبنا له ونجيناه من الغم وكذلك ننجي المؤمنين صدق الله العلي العظيم. Let's purify our souls, illuminate our hearts with the name of our beloved Prophet and his family with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salla ala Muhammad wa ali. My condolences on the arrival of 25th of month of Muharram. Today marks the Shahada and Martydom anniversary of our fourth Imam, the adornment of worshippers, Imam al-Abidin, Zayn al-Abidin, Imam Sajjad alayhi salatu wassalam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send his best of peace and blessing upon all the prophets, all the messengers of God, and all of the Ahlul Bayt, especially our fourth Imam. For the honor of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, recite another salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Muhammad. After Karbala, our fourth Imam, led the Muslim Ummah for 34 years. And for many of us, probably we associate our fourth Imam with his illness in the day of Ashura, that he was bimar or sick or ill during that time. But the reality is that 34 years of leadership in one of the most difficult time in Islamic history was carried out by our fourth Imam alayhi salam, and he was the one who made sure to revive the Muslim Ummah and make the sacrifice of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam as a fuel to make it possible. And without a doubt, if it wasn't because of the hard work of our fourth Imam, today we wouldn't have these beautiful traditions that we have from Ahlul Bayt. This Qala al-Baqir and Qala al-Sadiq traditions that we have became possible because of the foundation that was built by our fourth Imam alayhi salam. Let me be clear that our fourth Imam lived during the time of Bani Umayyah. His imamate, 34 years, was at the same time as some of the most cruel and vicious Bani Umayyah leaders. Because as we know, Yazid didn't live for long after Karbala. He died in the year 64 after Hijrah. So within 3 years after Karbala, he committed many more crimes after that, attacking the city of the Prophet, demolishing Kaaba, and eventually he died. And may Allah, inshallah, deprive His mercy from him and increase His punishment. And after him came other rulers from the Marwan family. So if you look at Ziyarat Ashura, there's some names that we hear them in the story of Karbala, right? We hear Shimr, Umar ibn Sa'd, Ibn Marjana, Ibn Ziyad. But suddenly in the middle of the Ziyarat Ashura, we say, Ya Allah, deprive your mercy from Ala Ziyadin wa Ala Marwan. Not only the family and the tribe of Ziyad, but also Marwan. Because they are the one who also culprit of this crime. And one of the most vicious leaders of Bani Umayyah, or the caliphs of Bani Umayyah, is Abdul Malik Marwan. Abdul Malik Marwan is someone that he was proudly anti-religion. Even he was against very essential parts of the symbols and teachings of our faith. For example, during his reign and his rule, he forbid imams of the Jum'ah, the leader of the Jum'ah prayer, from using the term ittaqullah. If you're participating in Jum'ah, you know that in 2 sermons, the imam is reminding, advising people, ittaqullah. Have fear of Allah, be God conscious, be God fearing. And he made it forbidden. You don't have to use it during the time of his rule. He was against it. Amr bil Ma'ruf Nahy al Munkar, you cannot do it, because of course he's someone that if you're going to do Amr bil Ma'ruf Nahy al Munkar, eventually you're going to find your way to the ruler as well. He's the one in charge of the Muslim Ummah. So he made that also forbidden. No enjoining toward good, no forbidding from evil. On the top of that, of course, persecution, harassment, torture, assassination was a common practice of his time. And if you're interested to learn more about how our Imam led Muslim Ummah, just search the name Hajjaj, which was one of the governors of Abdul Malik. Who is Hajjaj? You know, Hajjaj is someone that is known for his sadism. He was someone who loved to see people tortured before him, especially from Sadat, from Alawiyun, he called them. That was a background music for his mealtime. That brings someone, a young Sayyid, torture him, listen to his cries as he is having his meal. And much more to said what kind of atrocities he committed. This is the time that Imam alayhi salam has to lead. It's a tough time. And one misunderstanding is that people assume that the leadership of our fourth Imam was in the form of silence. That he did not rise against the oppressors of his time. When in reality, the more we get to read the history of his life for 34 years after Karbala, it becomes evident that the purpose of the Imam is to guide people. Like Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants him to pick up the sword, he is the man who is the warrior who defeated enemies in the battle of Khaybar and Uhud and Badr and many others. But if Allah wants them to sit down and be patient. He is going to do it for the sake of guidance and for the sake of people and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala demanded from him. Our Imams follow the same. That what's best according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want from an Imam. They're fulfilling, they're submitted to the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So, I said this introduction to change our perspective to the life of our fourth Imam from someone who was, God forbid, assuming he was idle and not active, to someone who was active, was taking part to reform his society and the people of his time, but through a different method because of the time demanded a different approach. And we see this is exactly the method of the Ahlul Bid'ah alayhim salam. Not every Imam is living at the same exact time. They're dealing with different people. Imam al-Hassan signs a peace treaty with Muawiyah. Imam al-Hussein is stand against his son Yazid. Because it's a different time. Different circumstances require different approach. And Imam has that wisdom. That's why we should understand the wisdom of the Imam alayhi salam. That's why in the Quran surah, in many chapters when Allah talks about Musa alayhi salam, one story that stands out is the story of Musa alayhi salam and Khidr alayhi salam. Although his name is not mentioned, Mufassirin and the commentators of the Quran said this person was Prophet Khidr alayhi salam, or Khidr alayhi salam. That ultimately was decision made by Khidr alayhi salam that Musa alayhi salam find him questionable, that why we're doing this. But the condition was that if you're going to stay with me, Khidr alayhi salam said, you should have patience. You'll see the result. You'll see what is the purpose, what is the reason behind it. When you look at the Imam alayhi salam, we should look at the outcome. The same way when Khidr alayhi salam made this decision, if it was the ship or if it was the ghulam and the story that we know about, from an outsider perspective, it seems not the right thing to do, but we ultimately see there's a wisdom behind it. Imam alayhi salam's work result is the movement that continued by Imam Muhammad al-Baqir and Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhim as-salam. Recite salawat. And let me tell you exactly one of those accomplishment or one of those major changes that Imam alayhi salam made. Remember that leadership after the Prophet was divided in two main streams. One is the school of Imamat and one is Khilafat. One believes that the same way prophets of God were not elected, they were not chosen by people, the one who is going to succeed this messenger of God has to be chosen by Allah. This is the school of Imamat. It's a divine leadership appointment by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Caliphate and Khilafat's ideology was that this is something people come up with. In reality, it wasn't people, it was the elders, the leaders of the tribes, or certain people that they come up with this decision. And the first caliph has the right to choose the second caliph, and they can do that, but the Prophet of God somehow didn't have that right. And we respect everybody for their opinion. It's up to them. Everybody have to answer Allah on the day of judgment on their own terms. But for us, because we follow the path of Imamat, we should be very clear on this matter, that the leadership makes a big difference in the entire society. So when you look at corporations right now, companies, even a stock market, a CEO makes a big deal. Again, if you choose the right CEO or if you put the bad CEO, the one tweet of a CEO can crush the stock, can destroy it or can increase it because leadership matters, even in the business world. When it comes to religion, without a doubt, leadership matters because leaders are the ones who make decisions that define the future of this society. What are the priorities? What are the, let's call the major significance of investment and efforts of this government, for example? And for that reason, we see after the Prophet, this leadership went to the hand of people, that the result of that was civil war, multiple civil war. We have the growth of ideologies who are extreme in their own version, in their own way. We have Khawarij who are extreme in their theological approach. You have Bani Umayyah who are extreme in their financial and in their power. It's called the central power focus within them, making it a dynasty rather than a proper leadership system. And then you have the corrupt scholars who become the pawn and tools in the game of these leaders, who are being taken advantage of. And our Imam alayhi salam has to deal with this. Our third Imam, we have that a judge, a Muslim judge by the name of Shaykh Qadi, the ultimate judge of Bani Umayyah, gave a fatwa justifying the killing of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, the master of the youth of paradise. In the name of a prophet, you put on a stamp under the death warrant of his grandson. It comes from the leadership that uses everyone in this system, all the bolts and nuts in this system is going to serve the leader. And our Imam alayhi salam has to change this concept of leadership. And it takes time. It's not easy. I always say, when people, especially when it comes to community building, people say, we have to stop this, we have to do something else, we have to destroy this and build again, we have to start from scratch. And I always tell them, to destroy is much easier than to build. If you've seen demolish work, right, it takes a day, half a day, 2 days maximum. But if you want to build, it takes a long time to put brick by brick and build a wall. Same as when you look at the damage that was done to the Muslim Ummah, and now an Imam has to come and Islah. That's what Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam said. In his letter to Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, is considered his will as well. Imam alayhi salam said, I did not leave my city, Medina, behind. I did not rise for power, for corruption. I was not in search of, seeking status. The only reason I did was, طلبت الإصلاح في أمة الجدي. I'm here to reform. I'm here to fix a broken ummah that I see. And it's going to take time. It's much more difficult to fix, as I said, than destroy. And one of those broken pieces that we see in the ummah during the time of our fourth Imam is an ideological attack, is an ideological change. And what is that? Let me give you a story so it makes it clear what is slowly growing within the Muslim ummah. When Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam was brought to Kufa, they brought the usara, the prisoners of the war, the captives, inside the courtyard of Kufa before Ibn Ziyad, Ibn Marjana, the governor of Kufa at the time. And when Imam Zain al-Abidin was among the usara, he asked Ibn Marjana or Ibn Ziyad, asked, who is this man? Who is he? And they answered, Huwa Ali ibn al-Hussein. This is Ali, son of Hussein. And he said, I heard that God killed Ali, son of Hussein, in Karbala. And I want you to pay attention to the word that he uses. Allah killed Ali, son of Hussein, in Karbala. And Imam Sajjad alayhi salam answered and responded, that was my brother Ali, that was Ali al-Akbar, my brother, that you and your people killed him. Antum taqtulunahu. You killed him. So no, that was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punishing you. That was Allah protecting the Amir al-Mu'mineen Yazid la'natullah alayh from you. And Imam alayhi salam again refuted that by saying that this is on you, and this is on you and your people and your leader. You committed this murder. You committed this crime. And we have that he got upset, he got furious, and he said, why you let him survive? Why you didn't kill him like his brother? Kill him right now. He orders to behead Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. Hazrat Zainab salamullah alayha comes and uses herself as a shield between the soldiers and Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, and said, you killed enough of our men. If you want to kill them, first you have to kill me. And of course, it's before the eyes of the witnesses, eyewitnesses, is a public gesture. He's not going to make it worse than what already is. He changes his mind. Ibn Ziyad changes his mind from killing Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. But Imam continues. He said, عادتنا القتل وكرامتنا الشهادة. Let me be clear that you cannot scare me. My family, this is something that we been through before. Our honor is shahada and martyrdom. If you look at my fathers, if you look at my grandfather Ali ibn Abi Talib, if you look at my great uncles Hamza Sayyid al-Shuhada, if you look at Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, we're no stranger to oppressors and zalimeen killing from my family members. But without a doubt, what Imam alayhi salam is talking about is that ideologically the approach is that this is God's work. This is not on us. We didn't do anything. God wanted this to happen. This is known as jabr, predestination, determination that is already meant. Everything in this existence already meant for us, and we are without any free will. And that's, of course, my topic is not talk about jabr and tafweed and free will and predestination. Rather, I want you to look at that ideology being used to justify their crimes. It's not on us. Same story is being repeated in Sham when Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam is being addressed by an old man in Sham. That we're grateful to Allah who destroyed you and killed you and all the enemies of Yazid. Again, using Allah to say it wasn't us, we had nothing to do with it, God punished. And Imam alayhi salam over and over has to change this. That people think that all of this is happening because of what? Because of God's will. And in reality, people are trying to shifting the blame on God. Because Jabriyun and this mentality of everything is by God, it takes away the responsibility from us. It's easy, right? It's not on me. I make a bad decision, and I've seen it even till this day. In our communities, is still some form of this ideology exists. When we make a bad call, when we make bad decisions that are being warned by our family, by our friends, by people that we consult with, they warn us that this is a bad decision. I know that a lot, sometimes some people come to me, especially young people, Shaykh, what do you think? It's a moment of consultation, mashwara. I'm making this decision about marriage, I'm making this decision about business, about school. And they give me all the details, and I said, okay, this is what I think. And after I give them that, let's call it the mashwara or my opinion, they start trying to convince me that I'm wrong. That, but is it really the case? Do you think it's really a bad idea? And I say, okay, based on what you just told me, I never heard about this. I'm very impartial because I have no side in this. I think objectively this is a bad decision, for example. But I see there's insistence to a point that I asked them, so okay, let me be clear. Did you come to me really knowing my opinion, or you were looking for approval? You just wanted a stamp that you say, oh, Shaykh said it's okay. So later on, you can use that to say, okay, it wasn't all on me. Because it is on you. My brother, I cannot force you. My sister, I cannot tell you what to do, but it's on you. This ideology exists. And when things goes, south way and things are not going according to plan, what we use? Taqdeer. Allah meant it for me. This was not, it was out of my control. When in reality, it was on me. Imam Zain al-Abidin has to change this mindset. And this is the topic I will talk for a few minutes, is to understand our free will and our decisions and take the responsibility for them, rather than blaming my mistakes on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, shifting my responsibility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God forbid. This is the method of Yazid. This is the method of Bani Umayyah. This happened because of God's will. No, it has nothing to do with it. Your injustice and your dhulm is by you. You're committing it. Otherwise, what's the point of the Quran talking about the importance of justice and idala? Qawwamina bil qist, the establishers of truth and justice, is about people. If Allah said, Inna Allah la yuhibbu al-zalimeen, Allah does not love those who are oppressors, why Allah has to say it? I made you oppressor. Why should I dislike you? It was on me. And the reality is not. Inna Allah la yughayyiru biqawmin ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. How many times we heard this ayah? And there are people who make long stretches from this ayah, but let's get to the basic of it. The topic is, my brother and sister, the majalis of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. In order to take a step forward, we need to own our mistakes. We need to have the ability, the bravery to apologize when we have to. We cannot run away from responsibility forever. And the most dangerous is when we try to use religion to cover it up. That's the worst of the worst. This old man who stopped Imam Zain al-Abidin in the city of Sham after he said, I'm grateful to Allah that He punished you, He destroyed you and the enemies of Yazid. Imam alayhi salam asked him, oh man, have you read Quran? He said, yes, indeed I recited Quran, I'm a Muslim. And Imam said, have you read this ayah? قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. O Messenger, tell them that I don't want any payment, any reward, any recompense from you, except that you have love toward my qurba, toward my family, those who are close to me. He said, yes, I recited the ayah. And Imam Sajjad said, نَحْنُ الْقُرْبَى. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. We are those qurba that Allah says. We are those who are close to Prophet. We are the family of the Prophet. The man asked, who are you? He said, I am Ali, son of Hussein, son of Ali ibn Abi Talib, son of Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet. And as soon as this man, this old man, recognizes Imam Zain al-Abidin, because Sham is the state of propaganda. The people, again, even right now, as we know how much propaganda against Shia, they exist against Shia. It's interesting that sometimes I listen to people speaking about Shia, oh, you Shia believe this, you Shia believe this, and none of them is true. And I say, you should ask me, what do I believe? Before you label me with this, you should ask me. But propaganda has that power. Propaganda had the power to misinform people of Sham, including that man about Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. Once he recognized, he started apologizing. He didn't look for an excuse. He didn't look for a scapegoat. He said, I'm sorry for what I said. I didn't know. I was jahil. I was ignorant. Is there a way for Allah to forgive me? Is there a way for Allah to accept my repentance? And Imam Sajjad alayhi salam said, if you're sincere in your tawbah, Allah will accept it. But first step he took was to accept his mistake. You know, the tragedy is when we don't. As a couple, when people don't accept their mistake, it's not on me. I'm the best husband on the face of the earth. It's my wife's fault. Are you sure? 100%. Yes. It's my husband's fault. It's my parents' fault. It's my children's fault. There's always this absolute confidence that somebody else is at fault. When in reality, it could be partial. Maybe 90% are at fault. Do you accept your 10%? Or no, I already made the decision. That's why there is a dua in Shaykh Sajjadiyya, this beautiful book that all of us, we should have a print in the house, by the way, a copy of it. I know it's available online, I get it. I know everybody, it's more accessible on your devices. But remember, every time you open your phone, there is, mashallah, a good amount of distractions. Shayateen wanted your attention, right? You have to fight through them to get to what you want. You know, all those notification blinkings that, okay, I want your attention, give me your time. So that's why sometimes it's good to have a hard copy. Buy the Quran that you have, inshallah, in the house. Buy a Nahjul Balagha you have a Shaykh Sajjadiyya. And one of the ulama used to say this, he said, you know that even people who are not, you know, let's call them picky eaters, in order to decide if they like something or not, they try it at least one time. I said, okay, I don't like it. So do that at least with the treasures that we have. Try Shaykh Sajjadiyya one time. Because there are du'as in Shaykh Sajjadiyya for different events. Don't read it from beginning to end, cover to cover in one sitting in a few days. There are events. There is a dua for beginning of Ramadan. There is a dua for beginning for Eid al-Fitr. There is a dua for children. There is dua for parents. There is dua for many occasions. At least when it comes to one of those occasions, recite the dua. And you'll be amazed by the flavor of this dua, by the beauty of this book. And dua number 38, it brings me that, you know, owning the mistake, accepting our shortcoming, apologizing. There is an entire dua. This is a short dua in Shaykh Sajjadiyya, dua number 38. And inshallah, tomorrow night I elaborate more on that. And the dua is known as al-i'tidhar. Dua al-i'tidhar. If you're familiar with the word ma'adhira, ma'adhira meaning apology, excuses. When you say excuse me in Arabic, that's the term ma'adhira. I'tidhar is Imam Sajjad alayhi salam before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us how to apologize. Ask for pardon. And in the things that he asks is teaching something. Is teaching to the people of his time and inshallah teaching us, because that is, I believe, is a timeless jewel for us to benefit from. It's not just for the people of his time. That people have to know when they do wrong, they cannot shift the blame. They cannot blame Allah for it. It's on us. There are moments that is taqdeer and is meant for us, is out of our control. La jabra wa la tafwid. There are matters that are not in our control. And that's okay. We cannot escape death. That's his taqdeer. Sooner or later, death will come for us. Mortality is part of our taqdeer, is meant for us. But how to live up to death is not taqdeer anymore. Otherwise, what's the point of dua and prayers if everything is already decided? So Imam alayhi salam, the first thing he said in this dua, again, number 38, inshallah, look it up. And I'm usually against people using their phone. But again, for inshallah tonight and tomorrow night, if you want to look it up, is in alislam.org and other website. Dua number 38 or supplication number 38 of Shaykh Sajjadi. It's few lines, it's not that much. So again, I know to read a lot, it requires a lot of patience and stuff. It doesn't take much time to read the whole thing. But the first thing Imam alayhi salam said, Allahumma inni a'tadhiru ilayk. Ya Allah, I'm asking you to pardon me, to forgive me. When it comes to min madhlumin dhulima bihadrati falam ansurhu. The beauty of these apologies is, or these pardoning, and you may say why Imam alayhi salam is apologizing. Isn't Imam ma'soom and infallible? Indeed it is. The same tone we see in Dua Kumail. Remember that Imam, although we believe the Imams or the Prophets, they are ma'soom and infallible, we believe in their own level, in the highest degree of Iman that they have, still they don't consider their deeds enough before Allah. One thing I heard over and over is that the Imams are teaching us. You know, when Imam Ali alayhi salam is saying, Zalamtu nafsi, ya Allah, I wronged myself, Imam didn't do anything, sin, he didn't commit any sin. He's teaching us. This honestly didn't really convince me. This is personal to me. It didn't work for me. Imam is saying something that he doesn't really mean it. Rather, the reason Imam says, Zalamtu nafsi, because in the eyes of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, no matter how much he does good, before Allah, it's not enough. That's the perception of the Imam. That we're constantly in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No matter how much good we do, we are facing the ultimate greatness. The one who is ala kulli shay'in qadir. The one who is, as Quran says, Allahu Samad. He's not dependent, he's not reliant on any of us, including the worship of his prophets. So when Ali ibn Abi Talib says those words, because he looked at his status before the greatness of Allah, and he says is nothing. Before Allah is nothing. And that's the beauty of it. The iman, the more iman we have, the less the arrogance, the less the pride. And Imam Zayn al-Abidin, when he is apologizing, no matter how much Imam didn't commit any sin or anything, still in his eyes, he didn't do enough. In ta'uddu ni'matallahi la tuhsuha. Allah says, if you try to enumerate the blessings of Allah, you will fail. You will not be able to. So even Imam does everything in his power, still in his eyes is not enough. That's why when we say Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, recite the salawat. It's a valid question. Young people, a child actually asked me this question. He said, isn't it we believe Prophet is already in heaven, in some shape of heaven? He will be in heaven. So he doesn't need our salawat. Why we still say salawat? And the answer to that is because regardless of how much salawat we do, before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our Prophet is still in need of more du'as. Because Allah is limitless, and getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't have a cap. Taqarrub and closeness, proximity to Allah has no limit. So Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, the first thing he said, Ya Allah, I'm asking for your pardon. I'm apologizing. I'tidhar. All of them that Imam is referring to is about people's right. And other du'as, Imam Sajjad talks about his relationship with Allah, about his worship, his ibadah. But in this one, Imam only focuses on huququn nas, the rights of people. Why is that? Because as I said, this is the haqq that people undermine and find an excuse and a scapegoat for it, saying that it wasn't on me. You know, sometimes when people cheat in business, one justification that I heard is everybody does it. I'm not the only one doing business like this. This is the norm. Somehow that'll make it okay. Not owning that at least what I do is wrong. No, it's not wrong because everybody does it. Or if I wouldn't do it, somebody else would do it. So this shows that when it comes to people's right, a standard of preserving people's right doesn't have a proper foundation. And Imam Sajjad is teaching us. The first one, he said, Ya Allah, I'm asking for pardon. When somebody was wrong before my eyes or before me, in my presence, somebody was oppressed, and I did not help him, I did not support her. In other words, I was indifferent toward injustice. Ya Allah, forgive me for that. That I saw dhulm and I did nothing about it. What is the final wasiyah of Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam to Imam al-Baqir? We heard it. Alhamdulillah, all of you been to majalis and you heard it. The wasiyah, the final words of Imam Zain al-Abidin are the final word of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam to his son. And the final word of Imam Ali alayhi salam to his sons. So three Imams said the same word. Ya bunayya, they said to their sons. Hadith is narrated from Imam Muhammad al-Baqir saying that in final moments of his life, my father brought me near to his chest and he told me, my dear son, Iyaka wal-dhulm man la nasira lahu illa Allah. My dear son, I'm warning you. I'm warning you about oppression and injustice, dhulm. Especially to someone who has no supporter except Allah. In other words, someone who's vulnerable, somebody who's helpless, somebody who has no backup except Allah. Because sometimes you go and hurt someone, they have a family to back them up. You want to oppress someone, they have some power to stand up against you. The law is in in their favor, supporting them. There's some system for them that they can defend themselves. But sometimes injustice is to someone that they have no support except Allah. And that make it very dangerous. Why we recite this ayah? أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوَاءِ. Anybody know? This ayah, by the way, it's not recommended necessarily in traditions for the marid. It's an ayah of the Quran. Any ayah for the sake of shifa, inshallah, is beneficial. But this ayah specifically has no certain tradition that said, okay, recite this for the marid or somebody who's sick. Rather, the meaning is suitable. The meaning is, amma yujibu, referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asking a question that we know the answer to. Amma yujibu al-mudtarra idha da'a. Ya Allah, you're the one. But when somebody is mudtar, mudtar means somebody who has no help. All their hope is cut off. There's no other place that they can count on. They're kind of an emergency situation. They have no one to rely on except you. That's idtirar, emergency and urgency. Amman yujibu, who will answer the call of such a person except you? وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ, and take care of what is harming them, what is hurting them, what is su and bad for them. Who except you has that power? In other words, say, Ya Allah, we are mudtar. There's no, we cut off, we close all the other doors. All the other doors been closed to us, now we come to you. We should have come to you first place, but now we know the only one can help us is you. You're the only one that truly we can count on. This idtirar make the dua near to the istijaba. If in the back of my mind I think, okay, I'm going to do dua, but if it doesn't work, then I'm going to try this, then we're not absolutely invested in the dua, in the prayer. It's not that we shouldn't try, you do, but no matter the means that get you to your goal, knowing that the only one who truly can solve the problem is Allah. Even the best medicine in the universe, the best doctors in the universe, if Allah doesn't want you to live, you will not live. This is the certainty we should have. Not to skip the doctor visit. Not to say that we don't need the medication. Knowing that I take this medication, knowing fully that this is effective because Allah wanted to be effective. That's it. The shifa is from Him. This is just the mean. And when somebody's being oppressed and they are mudtar, their dua will backfire. Again, their dua will be very close to ijabah and being answered. My brothers and sisters, what is the relevance of this topic? Who are the people that they have no supporter except Allah? That if you oppress them, they cannot take their voice anywhere else. One of them, one of those people are our family. Our family, if you oppress them, in most cases, they will not be able to take it anywhere. They have to just keep it within themselves in order to maintain our honor, our respect. They don't want to hurt our reputation. That is a dangerous dhulm. Dhulm in general is dangerous. Injustice, absolutely in any shape and form, is wrong. But when you do it to people who are vulnerable, even is worse. Abuse in any shape and form. Child abuse, spouse abuse, family abuse in any form of it is dhulm. And to sit in the majalis of Imam al-Hussein and not learn that is dangerous. Is it possible for me to come in the majalis of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, majalis of Ahlul Bayt, and I could be among those who are zalim? I'm asking you, is it possible? I wish it wasn't. But we had examples. Family members, companions of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam who committed injustice. But I'm not saying we should, okay, first the ideal way is prevention. Don't let it come that far. But if it happened, own up, apologize, ask for forgiveness before it's too late. Before it's too late. And if you see dhulm in some shape and form, be vigilant and be aware how to help. Don't be silent. I'm not saying do something to make the situation worse, because there are some people who exacerbate. When there is a fire, rather than putting out the fire, they add more problem to it. They become the gossiper, they become the one, rather than reconciliation, they choose the path of destruction. Think about it. How can you help a mazlum? How can you, we have in the hadith from the Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, Sayyidina salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Imam alayhi salam said, our responsibility is to help the mazlum and the zalim. We're responsible to help the one who's oppressed, and also we're responsible to help the oppressor. And the companion were as shocked as some of you may be. How can we support, how can we help an oppressor? And Imam alayhi salam said, by stopping him from committing dhulm. That's how you help him. That's the greatest help we can offer for a zalim. That's how Imam alayhi salam changed the lives of many. Somebody come to the majalis, Imam was saying, they did dhulm to themselves. They wronged themselves. They committed sin. They chose a bad path. Now they're back. Help them. Don't push them further away. Oh, mashallah, you showed up after a year? From Muharram to Muharram, I only see you. Biryani is good tonight, that's why you're here? These comments, what it does, somebody is zalim. Again, they've been wrong. But if they're sitting here, they made a decision. They took a step in the right direction. And these comments will make us culprit. If they go and they return to their old ways, I will have a share in that because I pushed them further away. That's a form of dhulm. To deprive someone from guidance. To deprive someone from reformation, from change. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the honor of Imam Zain al-Abidin, give us the tawfiq of being a supporter for the madhloom, for those who are oppressed, those who are wrong. And give us this strength to fight the temptation of committing injustice in any shape and form, especially to those who are vulnerable, to those who have no one except Allah, to our family, to those who are closest to us. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us a tawfiq to recognize our mistakes, to take the responsibility for our shortcomings. And that's the moment we say, Ya Allah, zalamtu nafsi. Sometimes I sit in dua kumail and I say, zalamtu nafsi. I say, Alhamdulillah, I woke up for Fajr, I fasted in Ramadan. What should I say? Zalamtu nafsi. I didn't wrong myself, I'm doing everything. But if somebody knows himself or herself well, find the many dhulm, the many injustices. If Ali ibn Abi Talib cries in the middle of the night, do you think I have nothing to cry for? If Imam Sajjad advising Imam al-Baghir about the danger of injustice, do you think I have nothing to be worried about? Indeed I will. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq of ziyarat of Imam Zain al-Abidin in Medina Munawwara in Baqi Cemetery, inshaAllah, and their shafa'ah and intercession in the Day of Judgment with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Imam Sajjad alayhi salam is known as one of the Bakka'un, one of those who his crying and his eyes filled with tears was well known among the people. Imagine 34 years you live after a tragedy like Karbala. Abu Hamza al-Thumali, he says, I came to Imam Sajjad alayhi salam years after Karbala and I told him, Yabna Rasulullah, it has been years since Ashura. And we have that. Why Abu Hamza is saying this? Out of care. He's thinking that his words is going to comfort the Imam alayhi salam. So I think, isn't it the time for you to stop crying? Stop putting yourself through this much grief and sorrow. Because we have in history and narrations that Imam alayhi salam would cry if he would see water, stream of water, he would cry. If an infant is crying, Imam Sajjad would cry. If you see a butcher trying to slaughter a sheep, an animal, Imam al-Islam would ask the butcher, tell me, did you give him water or not? And the butcher said, Yabna Rasulullah, I did. It's mustahab, it's recommended, I did give it water. And he would say those words that will burn the hearts of the mu'mineen even 1400 years later. Said, how is that mustahab that you would give water to an animal before a slaughter, but in the day of Ashura, what they did to my father, Abu Abdullah. Abu Hamza said, isn't it enough? Isn't it the time to put a stop to this, to cry less? And Imam looked at him and said, oh Abu Hamza, may Allah have mercy on you. Yaqub alayhi salam was separated from his beloved Yusuf for some time, and he knew that Yaqub was alive. Allah gave him that comfort. But he cried until he lost his eyesight. How do you want me to stop crying that in a matter of half a day I saw 18 of my close family members, My brothers and my uncles, they were killed and they were martyred before my eyes. How do you want me to stop crying? Ya Rasulallah, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave patience to your family to endure this much bala, this much tragedy and test and tribulation. Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam was asked, Ya ibn Rasulullah, which part of the musibah was the most difficult for you? I'll recite the musibah of Sham tomorrow, my brother and sister. But on the final hours of his life, we have Imam was poisoned by the order of Walid ibn Abdul Malik. He asked the governor of Medina to poison Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. As poison spread out throughout the body of Imam, he asked his family, Imam al-Baghir, and he gave his final word, advising them what Imam is carrying in the final moment. He said, my dear son Muhammad al-Baghir, watch after the poor of Medina. I don't want them to be, the one who put their head, they go to sleep with the empty stomachs. Make sure to provide food for them. Why? For 34 years, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam carried food in the middle of the night in the darkness. Like his grandfather Ali ibn Abi Talib, the poor of Medina didn't know who is the one providing food for them. The final word of Imam Sajjad is watching after the poor. And then he advised them for others that he will be the next Imam leading the Ummah, advising them how to take care of the needs of the community and the people. And then he said to Imam al-Baghir, my son, I have an animal. There is this camel that I went to Hajj more than 20 times with this camel. Watch after this camel. Make sure that it's not going to be hungry. Ya Allah, Ya Rasulullah. This is the compassionate heart of the Imam, the Hujjatullah, that's even concerned about an animal who is left behind. But we have that after the shahadat of Imam alayhi salam, Imam al-Baqir says, I began washing the body of my father. In the middle of the ghusl, suddenly Imam started crying loud. Companion asked, Ya ibn Rasulullah, what happened? He said, I just saw the bruises on the back of my father from carrying the food for the poor of Medina. But also the bruises, the injuries of the shackles and chains on his neck and his feet. I remember what he went through from Karbala to Kufa, from Kufa to Sham. We have that when he arrived in Kufa, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, a man came and he said, Ya ibn Rasulullah, we're so sorry that we didn't come to help you. We wrote letters to you and we didn't fulfill our promises. What can I do for you? Imam Sajjad said, I have two requests, O Kufi men. The first one is, can you give some money to this soldier who's carrying the head of my father, Abu Abdullah, to take it a bit further away, because these children and women, every time they see the head of my father, they cry, and the soldiers are coming after them, they're slapping them, they're hitting them and torturing them. The second request I have is, can you bring me some fabric, some cloth? What do you want? Ya ibn Rasulullah, bring me some. And the man, he said, I brought some cloth with me. What should I do with it? Imam said, can you place it between these chains on my neck? Allah knows that under the scorching hot sun, my body's been burning, that these chains been on my hands and neck, and these blood are flowing under my neck. Ya Rasulallah, this is how they treated your beloved family. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. Ya Allah, by the honor of Imam Sajjad, hasten return of Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. By the honor of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, fulfill the hajat of anyone who is extending their hand before you, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, by the honor of Imam Sajjad, guide all of us to the straight path, the path of Quran, the path of the Prophet and his family and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And help us to be among the true awaiters, the true followers, and the Shia of the Imam of our time. Ajjalallahu ta'ala farjahu sharif. Ya Allah, from this majlis, from this event, send a gift, a thawab, to the soul of all of our marhumin, the marhumin of the volunteers, the sponsors, and the participant of this majlis. Let's inshallah conclude with the azah of Imam al-Hussein. Stand up. Matami Hussein. Ya Hussein.
حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین ابھی سجاد کی آنکھوں سے لہو جاری ہے 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 ننگے سر شام کیوں گئی زینب ہے ننگے سر شام کیوں گئی زینب یہی سجاد کی بیماری ہے ابھی سجاد کی آنکھوں سے لہو جاری ہے ابھی سجاد کی آنکھوں سے لہو جاری ہے ابھی سجاد کی آنکھوں سے لہو جاری ہے گردن میں توق بھاری اور پاؤں میں چھالے غیرت میں خون روئے زنجیر کیا سنبھالے لوگوں امت میں ثانیے زہرا دیر دابیر سے گزاری ہے ابھی سجاد کی آنکھوں سے لہو جاری ہے ابھی سجاد کی آنکھوں سے لہو جاری ہے ابھی سجاد کی آنکھوں سے لہو جاری ہے شامی لائن سارے پتھر گرا رہے تھے قیدی یتیم بچے آنسو بہا رہے تھے چاروں جانب شرابیوں کا ہجوم خون روئے کھڑا مہاری ہے ابھی سجاد کی آنکھوں سے لہو جاری ہے ابھی سجاد کی آنکھوں سے لہو جاری ہے ابھی سجاد کی آنکھوں سے لہو جاری ہے فضا کے پیچھے زینب خطبے سنا رہی تھی سیدانیوں پہ امت پتھر گرا رہی تھی جرم کیا تھا علی کی بیٹی کا کس کے سر سے ردا اتاری ہے ابھی سجاد کی آنکھوں سے لہو جاری ہے ابھی سجاد کی آنکھوں سے لہو جاری ہے ابھی سجاد کی آنکھوں سے لہو جاری ہے دیکھا جو رسیوں میں فضا کو حبشیوں نے دربار ہلا ڈالا زینب کی سسکیوں نے اس کا کوئی بھی مددگار نہیں ہائے اجڑی کی یہ لاچاری ہے ابھی سجاد کی آنکھوں سے لہو جاری ہے ابھی سجاد کی آنکھوں سے لہو جاری ہے ابھی سجاد کی آنکھوں سے لہو جاری ہے ننگے سر شام کیوں گئی زینب ہے ننگے سر شام کیوں گئی زینب یہی سجاد کی بیماری ہے، ابھی سجاد کی آنکھوں سے لہو جاری ہے، ابھی سجاد کی آنکھوں سے لہو جاری ہے۔ یا حسین 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 یا حسین۔ سجاد میرے بعد تم زینب کو بچانا، 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 سجاد میرے بعد تم زینب کو بچانا۔ اور شام کے بازار میں، اور شام کے بازار میں پتھر سے بچانا، سجاد میرے بعد تم زینب کو 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 بچانا۔ سربراہ نہ پھوپھی شرم کے مارے نہ کہیں گی، سربراہ نہ پھوپھی شرم کے مارے نہ کہیں گی، مل جائے جو چادر تمہیں، مل جائے جو چادر تمہیں زینب کو اڑھانا، سجاد میرے بعد تم زینب کو بچانا، سجاد میرے بعد تم زینب کو بچانا، سجاد میرے بعد تم زینب کو بچانا۔ روئے میری بچی تو اسے لوری سنانا، روئے میری بچی تو اسے لوری سنانا، نیند آئے سکینہ کو، نیند آئے سکینہ کو سینے پہ سلانا، سجاد میرے بعد تم زینب کو بچانا، سجاد میرے بعد تم زینب کو بچانا، سجاد میرے بعد تم زینب کو بچانا۔ عماریوں سے بچے گریں گے تو میرے لال، عماریوں سے بچے گریں گے تو میرے لال، گرتے ہوئے بچوں کو، گرتے ہوئے بچوں کو تم دینا سہارا، سجاد میرے بعد تم زینب کو بچانا، سجاد میرے بعد تم زینب کو بچانا، سجاد میرے بعد تم زینب کو بچانا، سجاد میرے بعد تم زینب کو بچانا۔ زنجیروں میں جب ظالم تمہیں لے کے چلیں گے، زنجیروں میں جب ظالم تمہیں لے کے چلیں گے، تم تو کو سلاسل میں بھی، تم تو کو سلاسل میں بھی صابر بنے رہنا، سجاد میرے بعد تم زینب کو بچانا، سجاد میرے بعد تم زینب کو بچانا، سجاد میرے بعد تم زینب
ज़ैनब को बचाना। ज़ैनो ताहा के नौहे को तुम मजलिस में पढ़ना। ज़ैनो ताहा के नौहे को तुम मजलिस में पढ़ना। आएंगी जो दादी उन्हें, आएंगी जो दादी उन्हें रो रो के सुनाना। सज्जाद मेरे बाद तुम ज़ैनब को बचाना। सज्जाद मेरे बाद तुम ज़ैनब को बचाना। मौला हक के इमाम या हसन या हुसैन, मौला हक के इमाम या हसन या हुसैन, या हुसैन या हुसैन। वो आबिदे बीमार था, वो आबिदे बीमार था, चलने से जो लाचार था, चलने से जो लाचार था। और शाम का बाजार था, और शाम का बाजार था, थी मुस्तफ़ा की बेटियां। मौला हक के इमाम या हसन या हुसैन, मौला हक के इमाम या हसन या हुसैन, या हुसैन।
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. وأن عليًا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح، حي على خير العمل، حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله.